Welcome back. Let's now add some extra details to the front. So edit the headlight, the glass part, then select those vertices. We're going to separate them into a new mesh. Then selecting this new object, move this to the top of the headlight. Move it back if needed, just like this. Then we want to extrude them. Then going back into front view, we want to create a 45-degree angle. So turn on auto merge, just like this, and slide those vertices, this one here and this one to the bottom. Then select that edge and we want to extrude it until it meets the mirror. For me, I will need to turn on clipping, maybe not for you. But just move this until it clips, just like this. Then let's move it in front of the grill so it's visible. Add a loop cut here to tighten that corner and another one in the middle and move it so it's just like that. So it follows the shape of the grill. Okay, so selecting those, I will just move them forward on the y-axis so it forms a flatter surface. And then I will tighten this edge just here. Let's move that over here. Add a loop cut in about the middle. Then pull that one back in and tighten that corner. Just like that, so you have a slope on that part and shade it smooth. Selecting those two edges, I will just extrude them further back and add a loop cut here to tighten that area. You may need to turn off auto merge to do this, just like that, because it merged the vertices automatically, for me at least. So we can see that the material is wrong because we duplicated it from the headlights. So just give it a steel or chrome material. You can even go plastic. And turn on only rim because we don't need the extra geometry it would create otherwise. Okay, so now back into edit mode, add a loop cut in the middle over here. And another one right here. Then select that face and just move it up so it creates kind of a small pyramid. Let's move this back a tiny bit so it's at an angle. Let's move this over here. And I will just create this kind of shape here that will allow us to place the Mitsubishi logo. Or whatever brand you want to have on your vehicle, basically. Okay, that doesn't look too bad. Although I think there's a bit too much chrome. And we can work that around. So I'll just pull that closer to the grill. That was a bit too close. So I'll just replace it back here. Let's move this back, just like that, and add loop cuts if needed, so you can have more geometry to manipulate. Not too bad, I must say. I'm pretty happy with how it looks. Let's just move this and try different designs. So what if we just made it flush with the top of the grill? That looks too much like two big nostrils, so I'm just going to pull it back down a tiny bit. I just cut some parts of the video because I was just spinning around, but let's try different designs. So I will make this plastic and see how it looks. It's a bit too much black for me, but I think a mix with chrome could look very good. So here I will select those two faces and Ctrl plus to increase the selection. Then create a chrome material slot. Then selecting that loop, I will give it a chrome material as well. And then selecting those faces, I will try to make a chrome band that runs across that trim piece. And those tiny faces will also be chrome. You can add edge loops if the demarcation is not clean enough for you. But I think that will do it. Okay, now let's create a smaller hexagonal mesh beneath the main car grille. So this can be textured, but we will just model it for the sake of details. So I'll just turn on my stream keys, then selecting those faces that we selected earlier for the main grille. I will just duplicate them into a new object using Shift D, then separate by selection. And going into edit mode, I will trim this until it meets the headlights, just like that, deleting those faces, extruding all the selection on the y-axis and tightening those corners. And then after enabling the extra object add-on, I will add a honeycomb mesh and crank the numbers of cells to 100. Then you want to scale it down until you're happy with how it looks. Just about that. You need extras on the side, so don't scale it down too much. Now apply all the modifiers and delete the solidify. Do not apply it, and then add the boolean with intersect and select your honeycomb. We'll apply it and delete the honeycomb. Now in edit mode, we want to select all the vertices and then go to object, mesh, cleanup. So you want to just delete the loose geometry. And just like that, I will put my main grille back on, add a lattice modifier, and you should be able to select the same lattice modifier as the main grille. You can apply it and then move it closer to the other one. Now, like I said, this can work with the texture just plugged into the alpha. If you want to be saving on the poly count and performance. So I'll just extrude this back to give us a little more geometry and depth. You can play with the lattice if you need to. I'll just pull that back in a tiny bit so it doesn't interfere with the trim piece that we made earlier. Alright, this is pretty good. Let's now work on the lower grille. So in Blender Kit, search for PL or hexagonal and use this one. This like full car grille pattern. And then place it and just scale down and place it over this area here that we cleared before. And then I'll select this loop, duplicate it into a new object. Fill it, it doesn't matter if it's an end gun, then I will extrude it on the y-axis. Going into local view, I can just select this. And since it's a very small area and it's flat, we can just apply all the modifiers to this one and cut it where it's needed. So with the circle select, I will select the hexagons I want to keep. So just select the ones in your area. Just like this, doesn't need to be too precise. Then I will invert the selection. Just going to deselect those, make sure you don't have too many bits floating around. So if you're happy with your selection, just skip this part. I will take a few more seconds or even maybe a minute or two just to make sure that I have a clean one. Obviously, you can make it a little bit more rough than me. It won't really matter, honestly, as long as it's not visible to the camera. We could have done it with the Boolean intersect, but I just want to show you, you can do it like this. With Control I, we're going to delete what's not used for the selection. And then go into edit mode, select all vertices and place the cursor to selection. Then we'll add a lattice modifier and scale it down over here, just like that, and make it roughly the size of our mesh. Now, since it's relatively flat, we could have probably done without any lattice and it would have been fine, but this will allow us to have a bit more control. So add a modifier, a lattice modifier, then select your lattice objects, add 1 or 2 subdivision, and place it into this cavity. And I'll just do it over here. For rough adjustments without the lattice, you could have just used the proportional editing, although it's a bit more messy. Okay, let's preview how that looks once Eevee is loaded. Selecting all of those, I will bring them closer to our mesh since we don't have anything like headlights or stuff like that going inside. Let's add a mirror modifier, just like this, and you can set the mirror object to the hood or any other part. Let's put them all on the same one. Okay, I think we can add some tow hooks over here. So let me add a circle, reduce the number of vertices to like 6 or 8, then rotate that on the x-axis, scale it down till it's about this size, and move it over here, just like that. Now in edit mode, let's just extrude it one time, then a second time at a slight angle, and rotate it, and extrude it, my bad, a third time, then flatten this on the x-axis, and selecting this loop, we will place the 3D cursor here with Shift S, and then put the origin to 3D cursor. This will allow us to add a mirror modifier, just like that. Let's just adjust the shape so it looks more natural, turn on clipping, very important, and add a subdivision surface modifier. Crank that up to 2. Then we can tweak the shape by either scaling stuff, rotating them. I think this one needs to be changed a bit. Shade it smooth, it will always help, and I will tighten this edge over here to make it look like it was molded. And we need to move this on the mirror axis if that wasn't done for you. That's why we had some pinching over here. Let's now move this into the cavity, just like that. You can elongate some parts if needed, just like here on the y-axis. Just adding a second mirror modifier and then setting the mirror plane as the hood. Let's move this over here, just like that. And we can cut a hole into our grill if that wasn't done for you. In wireframe, that will help. So it's easier to move the hook than to move the hole, so I'll just do that. And I'll move this one over here to plug that gap. It's not really needed since it's so small, but it's always an extra detail that we can add. And if you add some close-ups in that area, it would definitely be nice to have. Okay, that's pretty good. Now let's give it some material. So selecting it, go to the material property, and you can experiment with different stuff, but the final finish I will choose is just a steel material. So the same one we used for the skid plate. Let's now add some side steps below the doors. So in edit mode, I will select vertices up to here to connect those two fenders, then separate them into a new object. And dissolve some extra loops that we don't need for here, and then connect those two together. That's pretty easy. Then I will tighten that corner and connect it over here with this one. Add the same number of loops on both sides and try to slide them so they're face to face. Just like that. This area may require a bit more geometry, but we can do it pretty easily, just like this. And fill it up. Remove all of the vertices from the shrink wrap group. That's very important, so they don't project over something else. We can now add a loop cut. I'll just extrude that instead, but loop cut could have done it. Okay, just like this. I will tighten this corner. And let's extrude that down on the z-axis. And then another time on the x-axis to bring it inside. Let's tighten this corner. You can bevel it to add extra geometry evenly. And just like this, shade it smooth. You may require some extra geometry on the ends of your step, just like this. And now if you're feeling fancy, you can just try to close this area, just like here. I will set my pivot to active element and then rotate it from there. So it's a bit cleaner how it ends near the body. Same for the back. And our side steps are pretty much done.